You get nothing. Maybe if you worked harder like your brother, you'd be worth investing in, my father sneered, his voice sharp enough to slice through the tension in the room. For a moment I thought I misheard. My chest tightened as the whispers of my aunts and uncles floated around me, words heavy with pity and judgment. My brother sat there smug, his hand already gripping the thick inheritance envelope, a $10 million smile stretching across his face. Hi everyone. My name is Evelyn, 27 years old, and that was the night my soul cracked open under the weight of betrayal. Do you know what it feels like to be invisible at your own family's table? To watch years of loyalty, sleepless nights helping, and sacrifices crumble in a single dismissive sentence? I felt like a shadow sitting among blood relatives who treated me as if I didn't exist. The mahogany dining hall was glowing with crystal chandeliers, laughter turning poisonous. My mom's eyes flicked to me with cold satisfaction, as if she had been waiting for this moment to humiliate me. My father leaned back, proud, declaring his golden son the true heir. The air smelled of roasted lamb and aged wine, but it tasted like ash in my throat. I looked at my brother, his grin widening, his knuckles tapping the table as though mocking me. Rage burned behind my ribs, but I didn't speak. Silence was the only armor I had left. And then, like thunder in a silent church, my grandfather's cane slammed against the floor. Every head turned. His weathered face held a storm, his voice trembling but fierce as he rose. This family has forgotten what honor means. But I haven't. The room froze. Forks halted mid-air. My heart raced. And when he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a folded slip of paper, his eyes never leaving mine, I knew something irreversible was about to happen. What he handed me made my father pale and my mother scream. But that was just the beginning. My fingers trembled as I unfolded the paper, and when the number stared back at me, $55 million, the room gasped as if the chandeliers themselves had shattered overhead. My brother's smirk dissolved into ash. My father's jaw locked, his eyes darting between me and Grandpa like he had just lost a gamble he thought was fixed. But it was my mother who broke the silence. Her chair screeched backward as she shot to her feet, her voice slicing the air. You can't do this to me. That money is owed. She doesn't deserve a dime. Grandpa's gaze, steel gray and unwavering, shifted toward her. No, Margaret. It was never yours. And it was never his. He nodded at my father. It's hers. She's the only one I've seen fight, work, and carry dignity in this house full of vanity. The words struck harder than the check itself. For years I had been told to step aside, to let the men handle things, to carry burdens in silence while my brother played the golden child. Yet here was the one man who had always watched quietly from his armchair finally standing up. For me? The room's energy twisted. My uncle coughed nervously. My aunt looked away, pretending not to listen. My brother slammed his fist on the table. This is insane. She'll waste it. She's not capable. I inhaled sharply, every insult from my childhood crawling back to life. The times they told me education was pointless for a girl. The years they laughed when I worked double shifts to pay off my own college loans. Their words burned, but in that moment I realized something deeper. They were terrified. Terrified of me having power they could no longer control. Grandpa's cane tapped again, echoing like a gavel. I built this empire and I decide who carries it forward. Evelyn will not be silenced tonight. His hand squeezed mine, firm, grounding me in a storm of betrayal. For the first time in my life I saw my father look small. His authority crumbling under the weight of an old man's truth. But what Grandpa did next, beyond the check, made even my brother stumble back in shock. Grandpa didn't sit back down. His cane pressed against the floor, his shoulders squared, his eyes locked on my father like a man delivering a final verdict. This house, this land, the very company you run under my name, Grandpa's voice carried like a storm, was never yours to treat like a toy. I only let you manage it, but today that ends. The room erupted into chaos. My father's face flushed crimson. Dad, you can't just strip me of everything. I built this company with my own hands. Grandpa's voice cut him down with surgical precision. No. You built nothing. You leached off my sweat and passed off my blood as your success. Evelyn knows what sacrifice means. That's why from this day forward. He paused, his gaze sweeping across the long dining table where relatives froze mid-breath, wine glasses trembling in their hands. Then his hand lifted mine, raising it into the chandelier light. She will be the legal heir to my shares. 51%. Effective immediately. The silence was thunderous. My father staggered back like he'd been physically struck. My mother clutched at her pearls, her face draining white. My brother shouted, voice cracking, "You can't do this. I'm the son. I'm supposed to inherit everything." That word, son, echoed like a curse. Always him. Always the chosen one. The laughter, the praise, the endless excuses. And yet, with a single stroke, the golden heir had been stripped bare. My chest rose and fell as I gripped the check, the ink bleeding into my palm from how tightly I held it. I could feel every pair of eyes searing into me. Some in envy, some in disbelief, some in barely disguised hatred. My mother's voice pierced the air again, shrill and venomous. "You will regret this, old man. She will destroy everything you built. She's weak, she's nothing." But Grandpa turned his head toward her, and for the first time in my life I saw my mother flinch. His voice dropped to a chilling calm. "No, Margaret. You've mistaken cruelty for strength. And now, the daughter you tried to erase will carry the name you tried to bury." The chandeliers above flickered as if the house itself exhaled at the truth. I looked at my father, my mother, my brother, and for the first time they looked afraid of me. But fear was only the beginning. That night, the dining room emptied like a battlefield after a war. Plates sat abandoned, wine glasses tipped, and whispers lingered like smoke. My brother stormed out first, his fists clenched so tight the veins bulged from his skin. My mother followed close behind, muttering curses under her breath, while my father stayed frozen in his chair, eyes glazed in disbelief. Grandpa squeezed my hand once more before retreating to his study, cane tapping against the marble floor. "Stay strong, Evelyn. Tonight was only the first strike. They will come for you." His warning hung heavy in the air, heavier than the check in my hand. And he was right. The days that followed turned our home into a war zone of silent sabotage. My mother refused to speak to me except when she hissed, "You'll ruin us all," under her breath. My brother prowled around me like a predator waiting for weakness, slamming doors, throwing glares sharp enough to draw blood. My father, he avoided me altogether, but his silence was worse than words. The quiet seething of a man whose power had been stolen. I overheard them one evening, their voices leaking through the crack in my parents' bedroom door. "She doesn't even know how to run a company. She'll fold in months," my brother spat. "Not if we stop her first," my mother snapped back. "What do you mean?" my father asked, his tone dangerously low. "We take it back. We'll challenge the will. The board listens to you, not to him. If we discredit her, if we prove she's unstable, it won't matter what your father signed." I froze in the hallway, my heart thundering against my ribs. They weren't just angry. They were plotting to destroy me. That night, as I lay in my bed staring at the ceiling, the words replayed in my head like poison. Unstable. Unworthy. Nothing. For years, those words had chained me down, kept me begging for scraps of their approval. But now something inside me shifted. For the first time I didn't feel small. I felt dangerous. They had declared war. And they had no idea what I was capable of becoming. It started small, whispers at the company headquarters, board members suddenly avoiding my calls, reports disappearing from my desk before I could review them. My father's influence still lingered in every hallway, every office, every handshake. My brother strutted in like he owned the place, tossing smirks in my direction, whispering loud enough for me to hear, "She won't last a month." But I wasn't the same Evelyn they remembered. The quiet daughter who bowed her head at family dinners, who accepted every insult in silence. That girl died the moment my grandfather placed that $55 million check into my hand. I began showing up earlier than anyone, staying later than everyone. I studied every ledger, every contract, every loophole my father once used to keep his power. When the board tried to stonewall me, I walked in with proof of their hidden losses, contracts they had buried, deals that had bled the company dry under my father's reign. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I just laid the papers on the table and said calmly, "From today on, this company breathes differently." Their faces shifted. Respect doesn't come from bloodlines, it comes from truth carved in steel. And that night some of them began to look at me differently. But at home the war grew darker. My mother cornered me in the kitchen, her voice a venomous whisper. "You think you're clever? The board doesn't want you. No man respects you. You'll fail, and when you do, we'll be waiting to take back what's ours. I met her eyes for the first time without flinching. What's yours? You already gave it away. Every time you chose him over me. Every time you taught me that love had conditions. You created this war, Mom. Don't cry when you lose it. She froze, her lips parting as if she'd been slapped. For once she had no words. That night as I drove back from the office, the city lights blurred into streaks through my windshield. A thought hit me like a lightning strike. They weren't just angry. They were desperate. And desperation makes people reckless. I knew then that they wouldn't stop with whispers. They would come for me harder, dirtier. But what I didn't know was that Grandpa had one final card hidden up his sleeve, and it would turn their desperation into their downfall. Their attack came fast, and it came dirty. One morning I walked into the office only to find whispers circling me like vultures. On my desk sat a sealed envelope. Inside were fabricated reports, transactions I never made, documents forged with my signature. By noon, rumors of Evelyn's embezzlement scandal had already reached the boardroom. My father was there, leaning back with that smug tilt to his mouth, my brother at his side feigning innocence. My mother didn't bother to hide her smirk. See? My father's voice was silk dipped in poison. She's reckless. She's unstable. She doesn't have the discipline to run this company. The board deserves to know. My chest tightened, but I didn't panic. Not this time. Because I had already seen this storm coming. I placed my phone on the table, hit play, and let the recording fill the room. Their voices spilled out, the late-night plotting I had overheard outside their bedroom door. The plan to discredit me. The strategy to declare me unfit. My mother's voice, sharp and venomous. If we prove she's unstable, it won't matter what your father signed. The board sat frozen. My brother's face drained white. My father lunged forward, shouting, "This is manipulation. Taken out of context." But before he could finish, the boardroom doors opened. And in stepped Grandpa. His cane struck the marble floor with every step, his presence silencing the chaos. "No," he thundered. "The manipulation has always been yours. But it ends today." From his coat he pulled a folder. Thick, heavy final. He handed it to the chairman of the board. Inside were documents, notarized and signed, transferring not just his shares but also his personal assets, properties, trusts, and an additional $20 million fund, all directly into my name. My mother shot up from her seat, shrieking, "You can't do this. You're destroying us." Grandpa's eyes locked onto hers, cold as stone. "No, Margaret. I'm saving her. You destroyed yourself the day you chose greed over love." The room fell silent, the board members exchanging stunned looks. For the first time, power wasn't just in my hands. It was undeniable, unshakable, irreversible. And in that silence my parents' empire cracked. But their collapse was only beginning. It spread like wildfire. The board leaked the truth to the press. Not just about Grandpa's transfer of power, but about the lies, the plotting, the fabricated scandal my parents and brother had engineered. Headlines screamed from every screen, "Family betrayal at Sterling Enterprises." Investors pulled away from my father overnight. Old friends stopped returning his calls. My brother's smug grin vanished the day his golf buddies laughed in his face, whispering that he was the man who lost a $55 million empire to his sister. Even the charities my mother once flaunted at galas quietly removed her name from their donor lists. At family gatherings, the ones who once ignored me avoided them instead. Aunts no longer invited them over. Cousins stopped asking for favors. Slowly, the golden family they had built their pride upon crumbled into dust. Me. I didn't gloat. I didn't laugh. I simply worked. Day by day I rebuilt Sterling Enterprises, tighter, cleaner, stronger. I poured money into programs for women, scholarships for daughters who were told they didn't matter, shelters for those silenced by families like mine. Every dollar my grandfather gave me turned into something that could not be stolen back. But at home I saw the collapse in its rawest form. My father sat at the dining table with unopened bills stacked in front of him, his hands shaking. My mother paced, her pearls pawned, her voice a broken record. We were supposed to be untouchable. How did this happen? My brother sulked in silence, drowning in debts from his reckless spending, the phone calls from creditors growing louder each day. And then desperation made them crawl. One night as I pulled into my driveway, I found them waiting. My father, my mother, and my brother, all standing at the gate like beggars in designer clothes. My mother's mascara streaked down her cheeks. My brother's voice cracked as he muttered, "Please, Evelyn, just help us buy back the house. Just one chance." For years I had dreamed of this moment, of watching them fall to their knees. Yet as I stood there, keys still in my hand, I realized revenge didn't need fire. Silence was louder. I didn't unlock the gate. I didn't speak. I simply turned and walked inside, the sound of their cries echoing into the night. They had thrown me away. And now they were the ones abandoned. They called me worthless. They told me to work harder, to prove myself, to beg for scraps while they fed my brother gold. For years I believed them. For years, I carried the shame of being the daughter who was never enough. But as I stood at the window of my oceanfront home watching the tide roll in, I felt none of that weight anymore. The check Grandpa had given me wasn't just money. It was proof that someone had seen me all along. Proof that my worth had never depended on their approval. The family that once laughed at me now lived in a cramped rental on the edge of town, their reputation shattered, their invitations to galas and boardrooms revoked. My mother still whispered my name like a curse. My father still drank his silence at the table, and my brother, the golden heir, was nothing more than a cautionary tale. Me. I built something different. Not an empire of greed, but a sanctuary of purpose. Sterling Enterprises became a lifeline. For women who were told they didn't matter, for dreamers shut out by the very families meant to protect them. I created scholarships, housing projects, businesses that thrived on fairness instead of cruelty. Every time my parents drove past my gated estate, I knew the sight of it burned them alive. But I didn't need to rub it in. My silence was enough. Their collapse was their own doing. I was simply the mirror. One night I sat on my balcony under the stars, the ocean whispering against the rocks, and I finally let the words slip out, words that had lived in my chest for years. The day you called me nothing was the day I stopped carrying you. And the day Grandpa called me worthy was the day I learned to carry myself. For once in my life I wasn't heavy. I was free.